This is my sister's old minivan. It was a perfectly normal running and driving family vehicle. But then there was a big problem. Someone drove into the back of it. No one got hurt, which means that this big problem can become a big problemtunity. Because my dad needs a way to transport his electric vehicles. And I've got a saw. How hard can it be? When you're dealing with a vehicle that's been in an accident, you gotta be careful looking at the structure. Because it's easier for them to get bent and twisted in ways that really affect the way they work. So the first thing I do is look at the door jambs. Because any twisting in the roof or in the rocker panel will show up with this door moving around. So you look at the gap between them and see if it's even. You also can open and close them and make sure everything moves smoothly. This side looks fine. It hit a little more on this side. And you can see there's the track where the door would normally go is bent up a little bit. Looking at the driver's side door jamb, that looks fine. Works fine. The rear door doesn't open. So we look back here. I got about half a fingernail here. It goes up, and right about here and there, it's slightly closer. We got about a quarter fingernail. All the suspension mounts to this back section, so it did tweak forward a little bit, but we're also not looking at a whole lot. It looks like these actually came into contact at one point and then sprung back. I think it didn't move a whole lot, maybe a quarter inch. So we might have to do an alignment at some point, but I think it's going to be basically sound to being functional. We also want to take a look underneath and look for any buckling or anything like that under here. You can see everything looks pretty straight until we get to right here. First off, that's rusted away, but there's a little bit of an indentation here. I don't know if that's supposed to be there, so we're going to compare the other side. When we look, that same kind of indentation is on this side. So I'm not going to worry about that. We'll keep going back. All the suspension stuff looks okay. I don't see any bending. I do see more rust than I'm used to, but this is not from around here. Oh, some leaves. This is the last suspension mount, and then we have major damage. So we'll compare the other side. This is what it's supposed to look like, with the suspension mount coming back and a kind of straight, thick section. That crumple zone definitely did its job. It absorbed the impact and folded up, and it appears it's all behind the suspension. So all the stuff that does the driving thing looks like it's all intact. We just need to get rid of the squished part, and I think this thing will drive fine. Now the airbags didn't go off in this crash, and I don't want them to now. So we're just going to take off all power here. There's a bunch of wiring in here, license plate lights, backup lights, which I will need, wiper, which I won't need. It looks like it all goes to a harness right here that goes up inside this pillar. Perfect. Huh, no wires at all. Sometimes there's spring back. Got to relieve pressure in a few spots here. I didn't see this set of wires and sawzalled right through them, so I'm going to have to fix that one later. I got to remove this rear set of seats. I already unbolted this bracket. I got to the side bracket and I noticed some springs. Anytime you see springs, you got to be careful with those. It is a circular spring, so that's probably going to spring some way rotationally, which is better than it coming flying out at you. So I'm just going to stand back, take a pry bar, and lift up. We can make sure we relieve the spring pressure without actually being in the way. Looks like there's not much on this. Oh yeah, it's not really moving. We're in good shape. You always want to be careful with anything that has potential energy. Falling, spring-loaded, explosive, whatever it may be. That's surprisingly heavy. There's the end of my suspension, so I know everything back here has got to go. The van's already looking a lot straighter. Curious about this door though. Huh. It opens now. Oops. I've got most of the bent metal cut away, and this looks like a pretty strong area to start attaching things to. We have to do a little straightening here, a little touch-up welding where I cut too far, but I think this will work out as a good mounting point. I've got the same flat surface on this side. I'm going to try to make the load floor as wide as possible and go to that surface, which means this exhaust pipe's in the way. That's okay. We can fix that. Moving that corner of the van wasn't too hard. This is going to be a little more complicated. This is the rear HVAC system. So we have heater lines, we have air conditioning lines, we have a whole fan unit, some kind of controller system, and that's right in the way of where I want to put things. I undone some few bolts, and it looks like the whole unit kind of moves around a little bit. There's something on the bottom there. And then I'm going to disconnect these lines and see how much they'll flex. A lot of plastic ductwork. Looks like you can remove it as a unit. I wonder if I could just move this and get it working somewhere else. I was making my way through the wiring in the roof and pulling down the headliner. Found something I didn't expect. There's another computer right there. I have no idea what that one does. Some kind of sensor thing. All in the middle of the roof. I don't see any wires attached to this at all. It's kind of rubbery and wiggly. I wonder if that's just some kind of vibration dampener. Even though the other side had minimal damage, I had to cut it away to make it match the first side. I got this AC unit, and it's on its hoses, and they seem pretty flexible. The heater hoses are just rubber hoses, so those go anywhere. The air conditioning ones are aluminum tubing. Now this is formed aluminum tubing, and it's under a lot of pressure. I don't want to break them, but I'm thinking because they're formed once, they should be soft aluminum and can be formed again. And because they're under pressure, I don't think they're going to kink. I hope. So I'm going to try to bend these to make the lines go where this could fit behind the seats. Trying to pull fairly gently and not put a lot of pressure in any one spot so the lines bend somewhat evenly. The lines all kind of fold up. That gives plenty of room to the back seat. That's not a bad spot. Air conditioners have a lot of condensation. On a hot and humid day, you've probably seen a puddle under your car if you use the AC. There's a hole at the bottom where that drains. There's the drain right down there. Even has a rubber grommet. So somewhere near where this bracket comes through, I'm going to need to make another hole. Now the one thing I know about this area is that's where the gas tank is. So I really don't want to put a big hole into the gas tank. I did a little testing, and it looks like we have a few inches to the gas tank. That far exactly. That's a piece of 1/4-inch rod with no drill point at all on it. And that way when I go through, I won't drill into the tank. This is the grommet that came off the original hole. And that fits right there. And now we have a drain. The end here is still a little crumpled. Let's see if I can straighten that some. Gotta love metal. Just moves where you want it. With large amounts of force. There. That's a nice rectangle again. Starting with a fairly long piece of tubing in the bender. It's almost 4 feet sticking out of the bender. And it goes out there. That ATV rack happens to be the right size to make a metal stand. I made this piece as a camera mount for a different project. But when I made it, I knew I was going to be doing this. So I used this to set up the bender for this project, which means these angles are correct. So I can slide this in here, and it fits pretty reasonably. Now I can mark my bend locations using this piece. Got my tubing bent up, following the old lines of this cargo area. And that part fits pretty well. But standing back, it looks like that side is up a little bit. That side's down a tad. I'm gonna have to fix that. I want to get this as straight as possible, then I can work off it for reference. So I'm gonna do a little extra tweaking here. That's looking better already. I'm digging through my bin of leftover screws here. I found these. Those are self-drilling screws that are really, really long. I got a few of them. Well, all right, I've got 3 of them, but that seems, 2, 3. I have 3 of them. That seems fine. That went in a little too easy. I'll put another one right next to it. That felt better. I've got my 1, 2, 5 screws. 3, sir. 3 screws. And everything is held in place. I have something to work with. Right now, these tubes extend out quite a bit. I'm gonna trim them down or do something later, probably. It's a lot easier to make them shorter than it is to make them longer. I realize I'm gonna need a flat floor, and this is not. So I know I'm gonna go from here down some area. I'm gonna put my next tube before it starts curving in. I've got to recreate the floor. This curve is going to be really tricky to do, especially as I go around corners. This is the kind of thing a manufacturer can do pretty easily by stamping it, but it's hard to do at home. So I think what I'm going to do is actually cut this in the middle of this curve and recreate the floor right at the beginning of it. Since I'm going out longer anyway, I probably won't want to be that low because my departure angle is going to be affected severely. So going up a little will probably help. I need to remove these side windows, and I have a window removal kit. This kit's supposed to have every tool you need for removing windows, at least according to the sales listing. So I tried it on the other side. After a long time working on this window, I managed to dent up the body, and the window broke anyway. All that broken glass is the remains of the window. But I did learn from this side. These side windows look like they're glued in with this big strip of rubber here, all the way around. You just have to cut it. So I found a better tool than the window removal stuff. This is a flush cut tool made for doing some kind of fine woodworking kind of thing. But the good thing is, it can cut right next to something. Well, I got a lot of the way around, and we're getting somewhere. I just need to keep going anywhere that's still attached. Something squishy like this box works pretty well for holding it out a bit. That way, as you cut, it'll sort of separate and move away, making some pretty good progress. got it. One piece. But now that I've removed the window, I'm looking at the shape here, and that looks pretty useful. That inset for the window is absolutely perfect for some of this 1x1 tubing. So I took the body and cut it off right where that piece started to curve upwards. So I have the last bit of straight there. Now that piece of 1x1 fits in real nicely and follows the body line. Now the bottom part moves outwards. So I had to find the point where it meets. Tape measures actually make a pretty good plumb bob. I could move this around side to side and find out where that angle is going to intersect this straight line. I'm going to use my test bend again. I want that piece kind of straight. Start the bend here and make it go that way. Now I could use gravity to line up between that mark and the one on the bottom. There's a problem with that. I've taken so much weight off the back of this thing, it's not level. Somewhere around there is level. And I know I'm going to add more weight so this will sink back down, which means gravity won't help me right now, but squares will. And now you can see how square and vertical are two different things. But square is what I want, so we're putting my mark right here. Before I took off that lower bar, I marked it top and bottom. Top is for alignment so I can put it back in the same spot. The bottom is for a trim line. I don't need anything below that. I can get rid of a little mess like this. Now I got a straight line. Somewhere over in this pile have remains of a slide-in camper. Yep. That's what I need. I measured my window, and now I need to make some kind of back wall here. I'm not exactly sure where. So I was looking for some indication on the body what might make a good spot. And then I noticed there's an indentation right here. It looks the same on the other side. And then right above that, there's another strong junction right there. And it looks like I got the same one over here too. All these stampings have a good radius to them. So I had to take my tubing and round off the corner a bit. And those fit in there pretty decently. Now that I have two bars attached, I can use those to attach other things, because 2 points make a line. So anything I do that's straight from there is all going to be in line with it. I want a vertical piece that goes from here to up there. I clamp 2 bars to my 2 points, so I know those are all in line. Then I take another piece. All I do is set it up against them, and it's in line with everything else. Need to make some diagonal braces that meet that structural part. It's probably going to be roughly that angle. Goes wrong. I'm going to try again. That fits a lot better. Made a bunch of progress. Let me get you updated here. Those 2 bars were great for lining everything up. So I got some verticals in. Those are attached to another cross member and to the roof. I did a real quick small weld because I didn't want to pop the airbag. I don't know how easy it is to set those off, but I don't want to find out. So I shielded it from sparks, did it real quick, and it didn't pop. The window's temporarily in place. I got clamps holding it in because I'm not sure what height I want it to be. I'm going to do a little testing with it, and I can still move it around. Once I figure out where I like it, then I can put it in place. The bottom edge is in. The top edge, I added some straps. You can see I burned nicely through the sheet metal here, but that's a good thing because underneath there's a big plate where those bolt holes are. So that is actually a lot stronger by burning through there. Got diagonals attached to the chassis, and they're going to a corner point here where you have a bunch of things all intersecting. Reinstalled all the old wiring, got that computer hooked up. I reattached that section where I accidentally cut through it. It was just a matter of one at a time, matching size, color, stripe, various things. There actually were two white with a blue stripe with a silver mark on them. Luckily one was a smaller gauge, so I was able to check the diameter to make sure I got the right one hooked up there. I wanted to make sure I had all the grounds attached before I tried starting this. There's a lot of grounds in this thing, and I don't want any stray electricity running the wrong way through that unit. I've got the taillight on the driver's side here, which I'll need to extend, and the taillight on the passenger side here, which I'll also need to extend. These two go to all the stuff that was in the hatch, like the backup lights and the license plate light, so I will need those eventually, but not right now. I did not hook up any of the airbag stuff, so I'm sure I'll have an airbag warning light, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this yet. I'd rather have a warning light than chance this thing going off. We'll figure that out later too. Right now it's pretty sturdy. I can bounce on it here. Everything feels pretty solid. I'm going to do more bracing, but I have another thing I don't know, and that is how long these pieces need to be. So now I have it sturdy enough to try a light test, and then I'll figure out exactly how long I need it to be. And I can chop those off wherever I need to end the thing. See if I damaged anything along the way. Nope. Starts. Let's see if that rear AC still works. Yeah, that's still working. Now I got this van off the lift and on the ground. I want to see what my height is looking like and how much space I actually need. This means I need some temporary flooring. I'm going to throw a couple wood screws in so the ramp doesn't fall off. There we go. This is the longer of his vehicles. We'll see how this does. I'll deal with the ramp issue later. Huh. Well, it fits on the platform. That ramp doesn't seem very sturdy. Well, that fits in a lot better. Plenty of length, don't even need to turn it around. I've learned several things. Now it's a matter of what I do with that knowledge. And I don't know what that is yet. I decided to ponder it while I solved a few other problems. This saw, while new to me, isn't actually new. It's back from the age where even the switches were metal, and it was a little bit sparky. This is what the power cord looked like inside the saw. And yes, that is bare copper showing through on the power wires. The ground wire, for some reason, is totally flexible, and the insulation on this is fine. I added a cord for my leftover cords pile, and the saw is back in business. My Sawzall, on the other hand, was a little trickier. That had to come apart in lots of pieces. The whole thing had jammed up and stopped doing the sawing part, so I figured I overheated it, ran it out of grease, burned up a bearing, something like that. I found that the actual mechanism is totally fine. No problems at all. The problem was in the motor itself. This is a permanent magnet motor, and the magnet has attracted a bunch of metal chips. If so many chips jammed up on this, it won't turn inside its housing. So we're going to pull this back out of here. And get a few of those chips off there. This thing is really magnetic. Huh. Guess I'm picking them off one by one. Back in business. I'm going to attach my upper braces here because this looks like a really strong point. There's a whole bunch of sheet metal bits that all go together. By the time you add them all up, we're almost a 1/4 inch thick there. I want square tubing in there, so I got to make that a little more vertical. I'm going to go down a bit so I make sure I have a lot of surface area on my weld. That looks like it'll do. When I did the vertical supports for the wall, they turned out more vertical than perpendicular. so they actually kick in a little bit. I noticed it while I was doing it, but I decided I liked it. So to carry that theme, sort of swooping up and going back a little, I took the rear and bent those at more than a 90-degree angle. So the van goes up a little and then this comes down sort of vertical. That was the end of my plywood. I'm going to go a little bit further. I left a little bit on the end because I'm going to make a hinge there somehow. I figure a little extra material wouldn't hurt to have. I've been working on lots of little details. There's a lot of little braces and things that need to be made. And the air conditioner unit, for some reason their mounting tabs aren't where it'd be convenient for me. So I got to make all sorts of little extensions and tabs and things like that. But now this unit is rock solid, or at least as rock solid as a piece of plastic can be. Got some more horizontals in, finished off the window. I'm actually even doing some metal prep and proper-ish welding procedures. I'm even going ahead and grinding some of the welds down where the sheet metal is going to go on. Got to make sure this thing actually holds together. I've got a random piece of sheet metal I've been moving around to clamp to the structure. That way any welding sparks don't go that way. So far I haven't had a fire. This is the old spoiler that went on the back hatch. I'm planning on reusing it, but it doesn't work quite as easy as I thought. It's too narrow. It doesn't actually cover up what I want to cover up. Which means I need to make this piece wider. That's better. Or worse. One or the other. This looks about similar. Sure, symmetry doesn't matter that much. The shape is pretty reasonable for what we want to do, which is set it on the roof and cover up that gap. I mentioned these airbags before, but I've been getting a little more concerned as I look at how this is all coming about. I'm a little worried about setting them off unintentionally. That's not my big issue. This is the airbag that went over where the third seat was, and I don't have anywhere to put it back there. My original thought was to tuck it up somewhere, like up here, and tie it off, and then I could plug all the original stuff back in and we get rid of the warning light, and they'd still operate as side curtain airbags. But my concern is if I do have them up here and they do go off, that's right behind the heads of the people in the back seat and we'll shove them forward. This airbag might cause more harm than good. I talked to my parents about what to do about this, and they've driven vehicles for many, many decades before they even invented airbags. It's still probably a lot safer than the vehicles they used to drive. But for now, I'm going to remove these and just not have that worry for the backseat passengers. One thing I did not expect, though, is how big these things are. I removed the back part okay, and it goes all the way along through the middle of the vehicle, and then through the front of the vehicle, about halfway down the A-pillar towards the windshield. So that is a lot of stuff to remove. And it's all tucked inconveniently under this headliner. So I'm going to keep removing upholstery and tiny bolts. Eventually I'll get this thing out. And then I got to work on the side with the HVAC controls in the middle. I should have some practice by then though. Got the airbags out. And yep, those things are huge. Now most of it would be okay, all the way up to these cylinders. It's just really this part I don't want. But there might be some other model car, like an SUV that didn't have 3 rows, that has the same setup, just shorter. In that case, I can reinstall a shorter one, plug it into all the original sensors, and get the whole problem solved. Got some clear plastic I made up windows out of. Plastic isn't the best solution, but it was cheap, and it's easy to cut. And now, I can use it for a while to test it out, and eventually it'll become the pattern to get real glass made, if it works. And if not, I found out the cheap way. I've had this piece on and off about 10 times now, trimming a little bit at a time, and now I think I finally have it good enough. Seems to fit the contour pretty nice. And I'm hoping this thing's symmetric, so I can take this piece, flip it around, and the same pattern fits here. I'll need a little extra clearance here and there, but this piece is a good starting point, so I can transfer it to my next piece. This is going to save a lot of that fiddling around time, because I'm already pretty close. This side only had to be pulled out twice for extra trimming. And now, that definitely fits good enough. I've got my plastic window in here. I'm gonna have that sliding camper window here. And as I was looking at all that, I decided I need another window here, just to get good corner visibility. So I chopped up a little more plastic. I think that'll work. And I put this underneath the top layer, so as rain comes down, all these different pieces, it'll act like shingles and all go to the outside. I wanted to add a little more strength to this upper bar. Just took some flat 1/8 inch stock and used that to attach this bar to some of the stronger holes. This is one of the hinges from the rear seat. I also picked up a seatbelt bolt on this side and on this side. And seatbelt bolts are one of the strongest things you can find in these vehicles. So this bar is now very sturdy. So I can finish off that bottom edge of sheet metal. My last scrap of sheet metal is almost the exact perfect size to fit back here. It's a little bit past that wheel well, and a little bit past that one. Just a little bit too big. Which is perfect, because I'm not going to trim the end off. I'm going to cut this thing right down the middle for a specific reason. Because my sheet metal brake is only 30 inches wide. It would never handle the full sheet, but half is perfect. That's what I'm looking for. I've got a little overlap in the center, and I can take that up by trimming off these edges a little bit to make them a tight fit. I got the back wall roughed out and all in place, and that goes the whole width of the vehicle. Now I'm working a little more on the basket here. I'm adding more cross members, welding those in. I'm going 8 inches on center. Not sure if that's good, but it looks good, so I'm going to call that fine. Now I got a piece of round tubing. I'm going to add this all the way across the entire width of the back. This round tube's fully welded in and solid. Now I'm going to cut it away. Perfect. I welded in a square cross member right next to where I cut off that round one. The whole point of doing that is now I have a round stub of tube that's perfectly in line with the other round stub of tube. And I have a piece that fits right in the middle. I could put a pin in the end and this will be my pivot. All I have left to do is install that sliding window back here. I gotta do one thing with that first. I figure someday I'm gonna really need to actually clean this window. It's probably a lot easier to do before I put it in the vehicle. That's better. I've got the old tailpipe and a pile of miscellaneous exhaust bits. Sure, I got enough in here to put everything together, somehow. I like that might do it. Found a hanger that'll work okay. This whole pipe is pretty rusty, so I could barely get a tack weld on there, but I got a couple, and it holds on pretty decent. And I found a sleeve of pipe that was a real tight fit, and just a couple tacks on that. It really doesn't matter if it's leaks here, because it's past the muffler, and it's past the passenger compartment. We just want most of the exhaust going out of it. And this will be fine. I had enough leftover sheet metal to do all that, but now I'm out. I had to buy new metal. I bought a couple more sheets of 20 gauge to finish the body work in the back. I also bought this expanded metal. This is 13 gauge. I think that's somewhere around 70 or 80 thou thick. This is reasonably heavy duty stuff. And this is going to be for the drop down gate that you drive up. A couple reasons. First off, this is real lumpy and that means traction. Also with my testing, I found out I need this gate to be pretty long to make a decent ramp without too much angle. From the pivot point, it's going to have to go above where the rear window is. By using this expanded metal, you can see through it. Also, air will go through it for aerodynamics, if that matters. Hoping to bend this without doing cleaning. Good thing everything's on wheels. That U-shaped outer hoop came out almost right. The big thing I was worried about is the width, and that's okay. I bent that side a little too far. I bent this side not quite far enough. But that's okay. I went ahead and made the decking square and welded it in along just one edge. I set some random pieces under it to keep this pretty level, and I could flex this pretty easily to bring it into shape. I just bring the clamp in until that edge looks like it lines up pretty nicely, and I can weld it in place. On the side that I bent too far, I'm just taking a screwdriver and pry it out to where I need it to be. I flipped the whole piece over so it was easier to attach my supports. I've got them roughly evenly spaced, and I used the cutouts in the expanded metal in order to make sure these are all in line.
I've got the round bar that'll be the pivot pinned in place, and I'm grinding the ends of the supports individually to level it out and make it square with the rest of it. I did some hardware shopping. I grabbed a couple of these universal gate latches. There's an outer housing with the inner lever, and the whole thing's held together by a rivet. We're going to remove that immediately.
On this type of rivet, there's a form side, and then the upset side, which is where it got squished. You can see it's kind of hollow to make the squishing easier. We're going to take that side off. I've ground that head flush, so now we can just take a screwdriver and pop it apart. Now we have the inner bits separated from the outer bit. Then we just use a vise to flatten out one of these tabs. Like that. This thing moves pretty easy. We can just squish it back together. We can attach it on two sides of the tubing. So I want this to sit here. I want this latch to drop down right there. So we'll just push our rivet back through. By bending it back a little tighter, this is a better fit, and we got plenty of material to form a new upset head. This style of rivet is mostly solid, but it has that hollow end, which makes it easy to move open. I'm going to start with a punch and flare out this rivet so it knows which way to go. I've got it opened up a little bit, but I want to go a little further. You could keep going with a hammer or a vise or something. I happen to have one of these lying around. This is meant for rivets. It actually has replaceable anvils. This one's for a round head rivet, and so it's meant to hold that head. You can put that in there. Got a flat side on the other. And it just squishes. And our modified latch is ready to install. We got a latch. One of the bolts I used to hold it in might seem excessively large. But while I was buying latches, I also bought a spring. And that's going to go on the other side of the fastener. Down to there. And those springs are going to make this whole thing super easy to lift. A little too easy, apparently. Close is nice, though. I'm going to adjust this spring rate slightly. Now, there are two things about spring rates. One is the rate itself, which is how much force you need to move at a certain distance. The other is preload, how much it's moved before you start pulling on it. What I'm noticing is at full extension, when this is all the way down, there's too much force. When it gets all the way up near the top, there's not enough force. Now I could use math and stuff to figure this out properly. That gets a little bit tedious, and usually you forget some variable that you forgot to account for anyway. So what I am going to do is just drill a new hole a little further back. So that'll both shorten the lever arm the spring's acting on, and when this is all the way down, it'll actually make the spring extend less. The other effect it's going to have, moving it down here, will make the preload higher. So when it's sitting here in the upward position, it'll actually have more tension.
So I think that'll give me more spring here and less spring there. And it might solve both problems. I moved the spring over 2 inches on both sides. And now it's a lot better. It still lifts up just slightly. I'm planning on adding a brace and a license plate holder to this tailgate. With a little more metal, it'll probably be perfect. And it's better up near the top too. You still have to push it closed, but it is pretty easy. This is one of the ends of the spoiler. I want to make it mount as flush as possible to the roof. I was looking at it. It's made in 2 different pieces. This piece right here is separate from that piece there. And there's a double layer here. And I don't want that double layer. I want to just go to the single outer layer. It's got 2 obvious screws here, so we're going to take those out. And I already did the other side, so I already know what's going to happen. Absolutely nothing. Because besides those 2 screws that look like it hold it together, they also fuse these 2 together. You can see little lines of connecting pieces. All those have to be removed before we can take out the inner part. Which means another use for this tool. I got the inner piece off and now I have something to work with. What I have to do next is add a section in the middle. I could add something flat like sheet metal and go across the 2 pieces and wrap it around and just overlap them a little bit. Could be as simple as duct tape that I paint. But what I ended up doing is going to the 3D printer and printing out an extension piece. And that has a section fits right inside. So now I can connect the 2 pieces with something that's roughly the right shape. And as an added bonus, I added some tabs with mounting holes. So I can attach this with screws fairly easy. It's not perfect, but from here I think it looks fine. And now we have our original 3rd brake light again. We can wire that in too. I don't know how to drive this thing. Now that works. I'm calling this one a win. This idea is gonna work. This is the end of this video, but this is only part 1. There will be a part 2, because I gotta make this thing road legal. There's a few minor things I've gotta do, like tail lights, some touch-up paint, something to attach the touch-up paint to, and other little odds and ends. I was real happy doing this project. My sister and her family really liked this van. They had a lot of memories in it, and were really unhappy when it got wrecked. And now the van's back to being useful again. So they'll be happy about that. My dad's having more and more difficulty getting around, and anything I do to make my parents' life easier makes it easier. It looks like this setup is really easy to use and functional. So making their lives easier will make them happier. And all of that makes me happier. Hope you're having fun too, and we'll see you next time.